Well, 2021 has already started to be a little crazy for me, which is exciting. In fact, I just got back from Yendi, West Africa, with a group of doctors. So why don't we talk about that for a second? Well, hello. If you do not know who I am, my name is Tony, and I'm a filmmaker photographer in the St. Louis area. And today we are talking about my trip to Yendi. Why was I there? How did it go? What happened with all the COVID stuff? And what was my role on the trip? So, went to Yendi at the end of February. We're now about a week and a half out of that trip, but I still want to make this video, kind of share with you what I was doing. We went to Yendi, which is in Ghana, which is in West Africa, end of February for a medical mission, meaning it was a group of doctors here locally in St. Louis. They go to Yendi every year and they kind of support this local hospital in a city that is really big, but it's the only hospital. So there's like 150,000 people in this city. So it's a big city, but there's only one doctor and one hospital. And so they come in and they help catch up on all of the surgeries that they can help with, and they help support and resource the hospital. And it's just a really cool thing that they're doing. Well, this year they asked me if I would be willing to join their team, obviously like as a professional, to film, document, make some videos, tell some stories, all of that kind of stuff on the trip with them. So before we get into all the details of what I did, what I brought, how to go, all of that stuff, why don't I show you just a little bit of some of the footage that I captured when I was in Yendi. Here we go.
A story of determination in the face of the pandemic. A team of doctors from the St. Louis area is back home this morning after a whirlwind medical mission trip to Africa.
We are currently in Ghana right now.
I talked to Dr. Jonathan Limbard while he was with his team at Mission 318, nearly 6,000 miles away from his home in St. Louis, serving this community, a remote region of Ghana called Yendi, where some 300,000 people have only a single doctor to care for them. And this collective of St. Louis area doctors, nurses, and volunteers come here annually to perform desperately needed surgeries for things like hernias, thyroids, or obstetrics. And they're training other healthcare workers here on the ground to cover the needs while they're away. And this trip was key. They would be breaking ground on the emergency room trauma center that they'd been promising the locals.
So it was kind of the culmination of what you've been working for so long, to break ground on this really essential part of the hospital.
And we want to give a very special thank you to the talented Tony Mellinger, who captured those images with the team there in Ghana and share those pictures and videos with us for this story.
It's a really cool trip, and I've went on overseas, documentary style trips before, but this one was interesting because I was actually in a village that I'd never been to, and I was with a group of people that I really didn't know, and so it was really cool to be able to spend some time with them and get to know them on the trip. So my role as the videographer, photographer, is to just kind of capture the story and be able to do a couple different things. One, tell the story of what's happening, but then also be able to create some videos to help resource this team and this organization in the future. And so we did a lot of photography of the hospital and of the area, and we did a ton of videos for specific potential donors and people who are already involved in the financial aspect. Another thing that we did is we did a fun fundraiser in the capital of Ghana when we first got there, and it was a bunch of the like government officials and like some of the village chiefs and all of those kind of things in Africa. And so that was a really cool part. We actually brought some gear so that we could live stream that event too for people who didn't want to come because of COVID. So before we get too much farther in, let's talk about the gear that I brought with me. As a fellow creative, I'm guessing you're curious about what do you take on a trip like this. Well, let's start with the cameras. The first one I brought my DJI Mavic 2, no, Mavic Air 2, sorry. And I was able to get some really beautiful content. If you've ever been in Africa, you know that there is just this sand floating around all of the time, and so it makes sunsets exceptionally beautiful. And so got some really cool shots with the drone over the city and the hospital, and saw some wicked bats flying around the hospital, things like that. So other cameras that I brought with me, I brought for photography, I brought the Canon EOS R6, which worked flawlessly. And the thing I love about the R5 is that is a hybrid camera to a T. Like, it works really well for photo, obviously, shoots 45 megapixel shots, so you can get beautiful portraits and landscape and architectural kind of stuff, all sorts of great stuff. That camera did great. But then if I'm in a moment where I need to flip over to video really quick, I can do that as well. And I just kind of carry an ND in my back pocket, and I just flip it on there, switch over to video, and away we go. And it worked really well. Just so all of you guys who are worrying about the overheating, I took it to Africa. It was 100 degrees at least every day, and the thing never overheated on me. So the Canon EOS R6, R5, I still, after 6...
Could you try again?
Oh, Siri's talking to me. Even after, 6 months of using these cameras, I still haven't had them overheat. So do not worry about the overheating problems with these cameras that were originally stated. So anyways, yeah, video and photo with the R5, and then my main video camera was the Canon C70, which is their cinema camera. It's really nice and small. Had a really good time getting to use that for the first time, really, on this trip. And the way that I came about that is Canon actually, they sent it to me, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Canon, for letting me try that out. And it worked because I want one really bad. And so I'm probably going to end up getting it. But we will talk about the C70 in a different video. That has a very specific purpose. And just real quick, like, the downside of the C70 is that it is strictly video. And so for that hybrid shooter like me, it was a little frustrating that I couldn't just switch it over to photo and take photo real quick. But I had my R5 strapped to my side with the Peak Design capture clip and the Ronin and the C70 in my hand, and I just had an incredible setup. As far as audio, I used Rode Video Micro for the on-camera stuff, the close-ups, all of that kind of stuff, and then I used Rode Wireless Go. I had 2 of those and was able to do some like interviews, talking shots like that, but that's really all I took. So on a trip like this, I don't want to check any luggage, because if I lose my gear bag, I'm sunk. I don't have anything to do. And so I always keep all of my camera gear with me. So I brought my Peak Design 30-liter backpack, and I brought another bag, a Peak Design carry-on size bag, and that fit a tripod, the Peak Design tripod. It fit a monopod, which I ended up never using. It fit my Ronin S, the OG Ronin S, which I retired. That thing is sold, it's gone. I actually moved up to the RS2, so we'll be talking about that in a future video, and why I needed to upgrade to the RS2 opposed to just continuing to use the Ronin S. We'll talk about that in the future. What else did I fit in there? And then I fit some of the live streaming stuff, all my cables and chargers and everything fit in that Peak Design carry-on. And so I like to keep it nice and tight, run and gun style. As far as lighting, I just brought a couple of the Aperture MCs. That gave me some, I'm using one right there, that gave me some flexibility if I needed to light up things in the hospital and do interviews like that. I would either have somebody hold it or I would mount it to the camera, depending on what I was doing. So that's basically all the gear that I brought with me. And so I was able to knock out so much stuff with basically just 2 cameras and a drone. Now, another thing that I did do, I used this guy right here, the good old iPhone, and believe it or not, like, you can get some incredible video now with these iPhones, and they shoot Pro, RAW, whatever that is, and so when it comes to photography and video, like, the best camera that you have is the one that is in your hand. And so I even use this to get some nice shots of driving and different things like that, and then they color grade really nicely into the mix. So it was really cool to hang out with some doctors and see how they kind of operate together and as a team, and I was able to go into the operating room and get some really nice photos and footage of what they were doing in there for some support material. I kind of focused outside of the operating room. I feel like a lot of the content that I've gotten in the past is kind of more geared towards that operating room and stories regarding that. So I kind of branched out and got some of the people working with other nurses that they were training and equipping. I got some footage of just the hospital itself. They're actually helping, that fundraiser that I mentioned, they're actually helping build a new emergency room there. And so I made sure to capture some of that process, and we did a groundbreaking, funny story. This whole time leading up to the story, we're planning and everything, and the guy that I'm working with directly, he's like, yeah, we're gonna have a sword cutting where they are, they're gonna like do this sword cutting ceremony to like open the building. And so we get there and we're meeting with some of the people and the officials, and we are starting to ask, like, what are these swords like? And they're like, no, sod cutting, like the grass. And so they do not have sod in Yendi anywhere, but they did use an axe to break through the hard-packed dirt, and that's what it was. So, no swords. Oh well, still got some cool drone footage and video content with that as well. So, it was a fun trip. Regarding COVID, how do you travel across the world with COVID? And so, when you're traveling with doctors, believe it or not, you become a little bit of a high-risk person. So I was able to get my vaccine at the beginning of the year. And so I had my COVID vaccine. Obviously, we wear masks everywhere we go. I had a test before the trip. I had a test as soon as we landed in Ghana. I had another test before we came back. There's all sorts of protocol to get through that process to make sure that you're not bringing in COVID to a different country. And so none of us, we all tested negative every time, which was really cool. And it was a really cool experience just to see how the rest of the world is kind of addressing COVID and how it's working out. Now, a lot of places in Africa, they're doing really well with controlling the COVID pandemic, which is good. And there's not a ton of deaths there in Ghana. And in fact, I was very impressed when I got off of the airport, just how clean everything was, how the process was to make sure that you get tested, and just kind of the protocols you went through to keep the people safe. And I think the way that Ghana operates is keep the outside COVID cases as minimal as possible, and then we can work on the ones that are in the country. And they've done a really good job with that. So it was a really good experience. I, believe it or not, like regarding the masks, so many more people were wearing masks than I thought. I thought for sure that there were just, once we get out into the bush a little bit, there wouldn't be people wearing masks. But pretty much everyone was wearing a mask. In fact, we're riding in this big bus, and we pull up to a stop sign, and an officer stops the bus and says, hey, you guys inside the bus have to wear your masks, even though we were all on the same team, which is kind of cool. And so it was really cool to be able to travel during a pandemic, and I know those borders aren't opened up for everyone, but it was a cool experience. So I had a really good time. Obviously, I love taking photos. I love capturing moments. I love traveling. Man, it was so good to get onto a plane for 10 hours, 11 hours, whatever it was, and just fly across the world to a new place and see new things and new cultures. I just love that aspect of what I get to do for a living. And so it was a really cool trip. I'm excited about that organization and what they're doing. If you want to check out that organization, check out Mission 318. I'll probably leave a some sort of description, a website link or something in there so you can kind of see some of the work that I do, and then also check out the organization. So pretty cool. If you have done any traveling like this, what would you have taken differently? Oh, we didn't talk about lenses. Let's talk about that real quick. I didn't take a ton of lenses. I took the 24-105, of course, because I love that lens. I took the 70-200, and then I took the 85mm f1.2. All RF lenses, but that's it. That's all I brought with me, and with those 3 lenses, man, you can knock out a ton of stuff. Basically what I did is I left the 24-105 on the C70 mounted on the Ronin for almost the entire trip. And then I left the 70-200 on my R5. When it got dark, I switched to the 85 to let in a little bit more light. But for the most part, that's it. I didn't take a ton of lenses with me. I just wanted a little bit of flexibility and be able to capture what you need. And I think that I got some really great images. One thing I was worried about with the 24-105 is it's a Super 35 sensor on the C70. So is that going to be wide enough? Is that going to give me enough depth of field? And I didn't have any trouble at all. That camera is just beautiful. It is it's a workhorse. So lots of good things. Like I said, let me know if there's something in this video that you maybe would have changed. Would you have taken something else? Would you have not taken something that I took? So let me know. If not, we've got a couple training videos coming up. I know that I have been not uploading as much as I typically do, and so we'll get kind of back into a routine. I want to do some videos on the new RS2 that I've been playing with. We've got a video on some tools and techniques that I've been working on personally that I want to share with you. And obviously we got some reviews coming up, so I've got some new gear and I'm excited about that. So stick with me if you haven't already. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, and other than that, I'll see you soon. Have a good one.